Hello, my name is Joel Diemert, and I chose to write my ECON 471 term paper on the case of Tervita Corp versus Canada. A little background to the case. The appellants are Tervita Corp, Complete Environmental Inc., and Babcock Land Services Inc. And the respondent in the case is the Commissioner of Competition. Oil and gas operations create hazardous waste that must be disposed of according to regulations. In order to operate a secure landfill in northeastern British Columbia, you must hold a permit to do so. At the time that the case takes place, there are 4 permits for secure landfills, 2 of which are held by Tervita Corp. One is held by PJ Site, which is owned by an Aboriginal community. However, at the time of the case, no landfill had been constructed, and the final permit was held by Babcock Land Services. Babcock Land Services is a wholly owned subsidiary of Complete Environmental Incorporated, and Complete Environmental Inc. was operated by 5 investors who initially intended to operate the Babcock site as a bioremediation facility along with a secure landfill. After receiving multiple offers for the purchase of Complete Environmental, the 5 investors decided to look into selling. And in July of 2010, a letter of intent was signed for Tervita to purchase Complete Environmental. And if Tervita Corp were to purchase Complete Environmental Inc., they would also own Babcock Land Services as well as the Babcock site, and therefore they would own all 3 of the active permits for secure landfills in northeastern British Columbia. And on January 7th of 2011, the sale of Complete Environmental was finalized. Prior to the sale of Complete, the commissioner informed the parties that she opposed of the transaction, and she opposed of the transaction on the basis that she believed that it would significantly decrease competition in the market for secure landfills in northeastern BC. And after the sale was finalized, she took the case to the Competition Tribunal for review. And the Competition Tribunal agreed with the commissioner that the merger would likely decrease competition in the market for secure landfills. And it based its decisions of whether or not to allow the merger on Section 92 and Section 96 of the Canadian Competition Act. And they also used a but-for analysis. Section 92 of the Competition Act states that a merger should not be allowed if it is likely to prevent or lessen competition in the market substantially. If the tribunal finds that a merger violates Section 92 of the Competition Act, they may dissolve the merger, or they may order a party to dispose of assets or shares as they see fit. And Section 96 of the Act states that the tribunal should allow a merger to proceed, even if it does violate Section 92, if the efficiency that would be gained from the merger outweigh the lessening of competition that would occur as a result of the merger. And the but-for market condition, it looks at what the market would look like if the merger were to take place versus how the market would look if the merger did not take place. And it's used to test if the merger, in fact, does decrease competition in the market. And the tribunal's decision. The tribunal found that in accordance with Section 92 of the Competition Act, the merger would likely lessen competition in the market for secure landfills. They also found that the efficiencies gained from the merger would not be large enough to outweigh the lessening of competition. So that was using Section 96 of the Act. And their but-for analysis found that if the merger did not take place, Complete Environmental would have operated the Babcock site as a secure landfill, or they would have sold it to somebody who would have. So this would mean that the Babcock site would be a direct competitor to Tervita in the market for secure landfills. And they also found that the estimated tipping fees, which are disposal fees, would be 10% lower if the merger did not occur. So they ultimately decided to order Tervita to divest itself from the Babcock site. After receiving the decision from the competition tribunal, Tervita decided to appeal the case and bring it to the Federal Court of Appeal. And initially, the Federal Court of Appeal found that the case should be reviewed for correctness and for reasonableness. And they did find a mistake in the case. They found that the commissioner had failed to meet her duty to provide quantitative evidence of the efficiencies that would be gained and the competition that would be lost as a result of the merger. And they decided that the merger would in fact decrease competition, so they dismissed the appeal. So the order for Tervita to divest itself from Babcock still stood. Then the case got brought to the Supreme Court of Canada, which found that the tribunal had incorrectly applied Section 96 of the Competition Act. They said that the tribunal should not have prioritized qualitative evidence over quantitative evidence. And they ultimately did decide to allow the merger to proceed. And here are the issues of the case. The first being that the commissioner failed to provide quantitative evidence of the efficiencies that would be gained and the competition that would be lost as a result of the merger. She should have calculated the elasticity of demand and the Lerner index. And she also should have calculated the deadweight loss and the transfer of efficiencies. And lastly, the tribunal should have used balancing weights. So the failure to provide quantitative evidence, the commissioner failed to meet her duty to provide quantitative evidence of the anti-competitive effects that would have resulted from the merger. She only provided a rough estimate that the tipping fees would be 10% higher if the merger were to occur. And if the commissioner had provided quantitative evidence, it would have allowed the tribunal to make a less subjective decision as to whether the merger should be allowed or not. And the commissioner should have calculated the elasticity of demand and the Lerner index. The price elasticity of demand is useful to see if a firm has market power, and the Lerner index is the ratio of the firm's profit margin to the firm's price. It's useful for finding if a firm has market power, and it shows the increasing in distortion between price and marginal cost. The commissioner should have calculated this in order to measure the market power that the merger would have given to Tervita Corp. And deadweight loss and transfer. Deadweight loss represents an opportunity cost to society when there is a monopoly. It is the difference between total surplus when there is a monopoly and the maximum total surplus. And it depends on the elasticity of demand, which the commissioner did not calculate. There is also a transfer from consumer surplus and to producer surplus. And this represents the efficiencies that would be gained. So this is important for using Section 96 of the Competition Act. And if they had calculated the deadweight loss, this would have helped the tribunal to make a less subjective decision when it came to Section 96. And lastly, the tribunal should have used balancing weights. Balancing weights are used to measure consumer surplus differently, consumer surplus and producer surplus differently when there is a substantial difference in the wealth of producers and consumers. And this is a more efficient method than using the total surplus standard, which gives equal weight to the producer and consumer surplus. And that's it. Thank you.